Hey Chaotic Crew, Brian here, and today we are going over the last of the Bloomburrow Precon upgrade and reviews. This time it's the Gruul Precon, the animated army, all about playing big enchantments and artifacts, turning them into creatures, and swinging face at your opponents. If you want a chance to win a copy of this Precon, make sure to leave a comment in the comment section below. All you have to do is tell me what commander deck from Bloomburrow you are most excited to build. I know pre-release happened this weekend. I went, had a good time, and I hope you got some new ideas for some decks to build around. Let me know what you are most excited to build. And 2 weeks from the date that this video goes live, we're going to be giving away this Precon on our Twitch stream. Twitch.tv/chaoticcommandermtg, and make sure to check that out and like and subscribe so you can check out all the other videos we've done, a chance to win some other giveaways as well, and see some awesome stuff on our channel. But let's dive right into the review, and then I'm going to take out 15 cards. We're going to put 15 cards in, make this deck a little bit better here. So the commander of the deck, Bellow, Bard of the Brambles, 3 mana for a 3/3 raccoon. During your turn, each non-equipment artifact and each non-aura enchantment you control with mana value 4 or greater is a 4/4 elemental creature in addition to its other types. Has indestructible, haste, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So pretty much this is going to be a big mana deck. It's sort of what the raccoons in Bloomburrow have been doing, is you want to be spending lots of mana. So we're going to be playing big artifacts, big enchantments, turning them into 4/4 elementals and swinging them in. When they deal damage, they're going to be drawing us cards. So definitely, solid there. Just right off the bat, we want some big value enchantments and artifacts that are going to be doing a lot for us while also being, bodies on the battlefield, right? We're going to have a few 4-drops, a lot of 4-drops here, because that's the threshold we need to make, and the earlier we can start getting these down, the better. It really helps that Bellow is a 3-mana creature, right? So some of the creatures, Llanowar Loam Speaker, a 2-mana mana dork, can tap to add 1 mana of any color, and you can also tap it to make a land, become a 3/3 elemental with haste. Till end of turn, it's still a land, and you can do that as a sorcery. So if you just need an extra beater to hit in there, he can help, and he can also help ramp into those bigger enchantments, which is nice. Lotus Cobra also helping ramp us, right? If we have some fetch lands too, or poor man fetches, we can get 2 mana a turn out of this, and it can definitely be solid there too. Sakura Tribelder, a fantastic 2-mana ramp spell. Trail Tracker Scout, 2 mana, tap to add 1 mana of any color, and whenever you expend 8, return up to 1 target permanent from your graveyard to your hand. So this is really good in the deck, right? Early on, it's going to help us ramp out, and then later when we are spending our 8th mana to cast spells during a turn, we can get one of those enchantments that's been removed or whatnot back to our hand, which can definitely help out. Wandertail Mentor, another 2-mana mana dork. Lots of 2-mana mana dorks, which I don't hate, right? Obviously, if we wanted to go fast, we could do the 1 mana value mana dork option, but 2 mana works really well. It can help us, after turn 3 of playing Bellow, we can get us into our 5-drops early, or our 6-drops, so definitely good there. And then whenever you expend 4, you get a 1/1 counter on Wandertail Mentor, so it can get a lot bigger as the game goes on. Burnished Heart, interesting to see in a green deck. I don't think we'll keep this one in. I'm not going to really talk too much about it. Grumgully is a cute include. 3/3 for 3. Each other non-human enters with an additional 1/1 counter on it, and since you're casting the enchantments and artifacts and their creatures during your turn, right, they will be entering with extra 1/1 counters, so that is nice. They'll essentially be 5/5s. Prosperous Bandit, 3 mana for a 2/2 first strike, and you can pay 1 to offspring it. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, create that many tapped treasure tokens. Okay, so you get a 2/2 and a 1/1 for 4, which can be nice there. Brightcap Badger is a adventure spell, right? It's got the first off, it's a 4 mana 3/4 that gives fungus and sapperlings you control tap to add a green, and then at the beginning of your end step, you make a 1/1 sapperling, so that's nice. And then you could pay 1 green and 2 of anything for an instant to create 2 green sapperlings. So kind of fuels itself there. I don't think it really goes with this deck. We don't have a lot of synergy for Saprolings. I think they added in another card here that we'll get to later, but Brightcat Badger doesn't really do a whole lot for what we want this deck to do. Goreclaw, Terror of Calcisma. Creature spells you cast with power 4 or greater cost 2 less to cast, and whenever Goreclaw attacks, each creature with power 4 or greater gets +1/+1 against trample until end of turn. Usually you play Goreclaw to make your higher power creatures cost less, but we're actually, the artifacts and enchantments we're casting, they are creatures when they're on the battlefield, but when we're casting them, they're actually not creatures. So we're not gonna get the benefit from that, but really the main reason Goreclaw is in this deck is because we want our 4/4s to be dealing combat damage. We don't want them to just be chump blocked, so Goreclaw does a good job of giving them trample and even buffing them up, so that can be helpful as well. Teapot Slinger, a 4-mana 3/4. Whenever you expend 4, it deals 2 damage to each opponent, so some burn there. Evercoat Ursine, 5-mana 6/5 with trample and Hideaway 3, Hideaway 3. So when it enters, you look at the top 3 cards, exile one of them, and then look at the next top 3 cards, exile one of them. And whenever it deals combat damage to a player, if there are cards exiled with it, you may play one of them without paying its mana cost. So you're essentially cheating out one thing, and you can potentially get 2 triggers off of that, which is pretty sweet. Garruk's Pack Leader is nice. Whenever another creature with power 3 or greater enters under your control, you may draw a card. Grothama is nice, 5-mana 10/8. Other creatures have whenever it attacks, you may have it fight Grothama. And when it leaves the battlefield, each player draws cards equal to the amount of damage dealt to Grothama by sources they controlled. So we can make our indestructible creatures fight Grothama, and then when it dies, we can draw, if we have 3 of them at least, we can draw 12 cards, which is interesting, right? It requires a bit of setup. I don't think it's necessarily what we want out of this deck. Pyreswipe Hawk is a cool card, 5-mana 4/4 with flying and haste. When it attacks, it gets +X/+0 until end of turn, where X is the greatest mana value among artifacts you control. So we've got some 6 drops, some 7 drops, some 5 drops, so probably going to be one of those, right? It's going to be almost a 10 damage flyer coming in. And then when you expend 6, you gain control of up to 1 target artifact for as long as you control Pyreswipe. So when you pay your 6th mana to cast a spell in a turn, and this is 5, so if you have something else you play after this, right, it triggers right away. It can steal some of your opponent's important artifacts. Typically it's going to be maybe a mana rock or something, but can definitely be helpful regardless. Tendershoot Dryad is the other Saproling support we have here. It's an amazing card. I would recommend running in any token deck, but this deck doesn't really want tokens, and I'm surprised if this is even in here. It should probably be in the Squirrel Precon, right? We'll probably take this one out, even though it is a fantastic card. It can kind of swing games by itself. It doesn't fit with our deck synergistically, so we want to make sure we're doing as much of that as we can. Wild Seer, Scoring Maw, the alternate commander for this Precon. 5 mana for a 6/6 trample, already great stats, and then whenever you cast enchantment spells, they have Cascade from your hand, so it's pretty neat there. We do, you can see the Precon has 13 enchantments. We're going to be adding in a few more, so even if we're only having a 1/7 of our deck, right, be enchantments, it's definitely worth to get the Cascade occasionally. And like I said, 5 mana 6/6 is definitely strong. Atali Primal Storm is really solid. It lets you cast a bunch of spells from exile. We don't have a ton of haste givers in this deck, so even though I love putting this in every red deck I can, I actually might end up taking this out because it could be too slow and doesn't really do a whole lot of what we want it to be doing, right? If we attack and we get a free spell off the top of our library, that's an enchantment or a big artifact or enchantment, we're not going to be able to attack with it that turn. This is really kind of what we want to be doing. So Atali is a great card, but probably not for us. Kodama of the East Tree, a big mana creature as well. 6 mana 6/6 with reach. Whenever another permanent enters, if it wasn't put onto the battlefield with its ability, I may put a permanent card with equal or less mana value from our hand onto the battlefield. So pretty much whenever we cast one of our big artifacts or enchantments or anything, right, it can be even lands we play, if we can essentially put another one for free that has lesser mana value, which is kind of nice. Rampaging Bayless is pretty good too. 6 mana 6/6. When a land enters, we get 4/4 beasts. Since we kind of have 4/4 Kindred going on here. Galta, Primal Hunger, is also an amazing card. 12 mana, 12/12, but it costs less, where X is the total power of creatures we control, so going to easily get that down to 2. So very strong card. Domri, Anarch of Bolas, is a 3 mana, 3 loyal to Planeswalker, buffs our creatures, which is important for our artifacts and enchantments, and then it can also help ramp us as well and make the creature spells we cast not be able to be countered. Now again, when we're casting the spells, the enchantments and the artifacts are not creatures. It's only when we control them they are creatures. So they will enter the battlefield as creatures, but on the stack they are not, or casting them they are not. The spells from the deck, Abrade, you can deal 3 damage to a creature or destroy artifacts, so pretty versatile. Explore is sort of semi-ramp and replaces itself, which is nice. Farseek is a good ramp spell. Ramp and Growth, fantastic ramp. Starstorm is a board wipe, deals X damage to each creature, and it has cycling 3. I'm not sure about this. I mean, it could definitely be good during your turn, right? But then if your commander's out and your stuff is indestructible, why would you want to destroy your own commander? I don't know. I think you can have better things in here with a red, but especially having to pump so much mana into it to destroy bigger creatures. I think the biggest hurdle this deck has is going against creatures that, are higher than 4/4s, going against big mana decks that have, bigger creatures that can just chump block and not have to worry about your 4/4s. So Starstorm is actually a spell that's going to be very costly to deal with that problem, and I don't think it's worth it. Beast Within is really good. A 3 mana, remove anything, give him a 3/3 beast, and that, is a great trade-off right there. Chaos Warp, also in any red deck, you want this. Cultivate, another fantastic ram spell to get these big artifacts and enchantments out there. Big Scores, also sort of semi-ramp, and, you discard a card, draw 2, and make 2 treasures, so that can definitely be helpful there as well, especially if you're going to have this Trail Tracker Scout out, discard a card, and when you expend 8, right? Because you're paying 4 mana, you're getting 2 treasures. If you had 2 more open mana, you could pay 4 more mana for something and bring whatever you discarded back to your hand, so that's kind of neat there. And we also have Decimate, which is a great removal, destroys an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a land. Harmonize, in the biggest problem with Decimate, I'll say as well, is that sometimes you don't have an artifact or an enchantment to target, but on your turn, your enchantments and artifacts are indestructible, the ones we're going to be using. So even if you don't have one of those to target, now you do, and it's not even going to hurt you for it. So definitely helpful there. Harmonize is a 4 mana draw 3, which is nice. Blasphemous Act, it costs 1 less to cast for each creature, and it deals 13 damage to each creature. So definitely a lot better, right, to dealing with those higher power creatures than Starstorm, which is usually going to be costing 1 mana, and we're only going to be losing our commander, maybe a couple other creatures, so not a huge deal there. Then we have a bunch of artifacts: Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Fellwar Stone, Gruul Signet, Mind Stone, just some great ramp. Talisman of Impulse, Thought Vessel to give us no max hand size. We also have Asika's Chariot, right, as a 4 mana 4/4 vehicle, and vehicles work great with this deck because you play them, they're already going to have haste, and they're already going to be essentially their creature just with replaced power and toughness of 4/4. So it's really nice. So when this enters, you make 2 tokens, and then whenever it attacks, you make a token that's a copy of target token you control. So definitely really good there. Hedron Archive, another ramp spell that can help draw us cards later in the game. Thran Dynamo, also solid, gives us 3 mana to help cast in even bigger spells the following turn. Gilded Lotus, 5 mana. We're starting to get up there. These spells are solid, and I like how we have a lot of lower to the ground ramp as well, but always nice to have these. Bootlegger Stash is an artifact that is sort of semi-ramp. You can store your mana and make them into treasures, which is nice, but it's kind of slow and not really maybe what this deck wants, but it is a 6 mana artifact. Rolling Hamsphere, a new card, 7 mana for a vehicle that's essentially a 4/4. It has crew 3, and it gets +1/+1 for each hamster you control. And you're probably thinking, well, Brian, you don't have any hamsters in this deck. What is this doing here? Well, whenever it attacks, you get 3 1/1 hamsters. And then it deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of hamsters you control. So as soon as you attack, you're going to get 3 hamsters, and then you're going to deal 3 damage to any target. And it's going to become a 7/7. And then the next turn, you're going to get 3 more hamsters. It's going to become a 10/10, and you're going to deal 3 damage or 6 damage to any target. So that can definitely be, I mean, it's a rolling hamsphere. It is a snowball, literally. Spine of Ishsaw, also a great removal piece. Hits any permanent, 7 mana, and when it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you return it to your hand. So it can definitely be really solid there too. Moving on to the enchantments, Garrick's Uprising is important because, you know, if we have one of our enchantments on the battlefield, or when another big enchantment will enter, we'll be drawing cards, and then it gives our creatures trample, which is also important. Even though this isn't going to be a 4/4, having this is really good in the deck. Alchemist talent, probably the only talent we're keeping in these precons. Spoiler alert for the other reviews if you haven't seen those yet. 4 mana, so it does exactly what we want to do already, right? Without even doing anything. It's a 4 mana enchantment, which is what we want. When it enters, we make 2 tap treasures, so it's helping ramp out into future turns. Then pay 2 to level 2 to give treasures, you know, be able to tap and sacrifice for 2 mana. So it essentially pays off for itself by leveling it up. And then whenever you cast a spell, if mana from a treasure is spent to cast it, it deals damage equal to that spell's mana value to each opponent. So we're going to be casting massive spells, and I know it is expensive to get there, but if you have extra mana, it's definitely worth it. And then you're going to start burning your opponents out, which is nice. Greater Good, fantastic for this deck too. If you're just needing to dig for answers, or maybe someone board wipes or something, you can sack your creatures. Or if, say, you attack into a comeuppance or something and you don't want to exile all your attacking creatures, you can sack your enchantments, your artifacts to draw, you know, 4 power and discard 3 cards. So you're essentially, you know, filtering through and drawing a card each time is really solid. Outpost Siege is like extra card draw. You're most of the time not going to be choosing dragons. You're just going to be choosing cons and getting an extra impulse draw each turn. And it's, you know, a 4 mana enchantment, so perfect there. Path of Discovery, also great. Whenever a creature enters, it explores, and you know, if you're getting lands, you're drawing your lands, or you're even putting counters on the enchantments as they enter. It will see itself enter as well, because it will be a creature when it enters, so that's nice too. Berserker's Onslaught, attacking creatures we control double strike, so our 4/4s are now coming in for 8, and that's even more relevant if we're giving them trample, which is solid. Gratuitous Violence, 5 mana for an enchantment. For creature we control will deal damage to a permanent or player. It deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead, so really solid there. Reign of Riches, amazing with the Alchemist talent, right? Reign of Riches, when it enters, you can make 2 treasures, and then the first spell you cast each turn, that mana from a treasure is spent to cast, has Cascade. So we're going to be able to use those treasures in later turns to cast our big spells, and then they will cascade into other fantastic artifacts and enchantments. Thickest in the Thicket is a new spell, enchantment for 5 mana. When it enters, you put X on 1 counters on target creature, where X is that creature's power. So you could do it to itself or another creature. Make this an 8/8 or make something else an 8/8 or whatnot. Beginning of your end step, draw 2 cards if you control the creature with the greatest power or tied for the greatest power. So, I mean, typically when this enters, not a whole lot's going to have an 8/8 or higher. So this could definitely be drawing you a bunch of cards. Unnatural Growth is going to be doubling the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn, which is really nice. Primeval Bounty, 6 mana. Pretty solid card. Pretty much whenever you're casting spells, you're getting a benefit. If you're casting creatures, you get tokens that are 3/3s. If you cast non-creatures, you get 3 counters on creatures you control, so that's nice. And then whenever a land enters the battlefield under control, you gain 3 life, so helping you stay alive there as well, so it's definitely solid. Sunbird's Invocation, I mean, when I saw this commander revealed before the deck I was like, this card needs to go in this deck. 6 mana, enchantment. Whenever you cast a spell from your hand, which we're pretty much doing most of the time, we reveal the top X of our library, where X is that spell's mana value. You may cast a spell with mana value X or less from among cards revealed without paying its mana cost. So it's a lot like Cascade, but a little bit different, and you're just getting some free good stuff from the top of your deck. And then Warstorm Surge, also fantastic here. 6 mana. Whenever a creature enters, it deals damage equal to its power to any target, and you know, all these big artifacts, enchantments are entering. They're creatures with your commander out, so they're definitely going to be hitting anything you want. It can be creature removal, it can be player removal, it can do a lot here. And then we have 38 lands. Once again, the secret number for these precons, 38 lands. I think we can take a couple out here, so that helps us add some more good stuff here. Let's just go right into the, you know, what I'm taking out, what I'm adding in. And we're going to start off with Brightcap Badger. Like I said, it doesn't really do a whole lot. We don't have a lot of Saproling synergy. And you can see I took out Tendershoot Dryad as well. Even though it is an amazing card, we're not wanting to make Saprolings. The idea behind this, I feel like, is, right, when it's not our turn, our enchantments or artifacts aren't going to be creatures, and we're going to be pretty susceptible to a lot of attacks coming in. And that's why they give you the Saprolings as blockers, but again, it kind of strays away from our game plan. So, you know, if you really wanted to have blockers, you should invest in enchantments that are going to give you blockers on the battlefield, right? Burnished Heart, again, I'm taking out. We don't need it in a Gruul deck. Any green deck does not need Burnished Heart. Atali, like I said earlier, is a bit slow for us and doesn't typically do what we want it to do. It's a good value card, but we don't need to have it in here. Grithrama as well requires a lot of setup to draw cards, and otherwise it's just a 5-mana 10/8. So, I mean, sure, it's a big creature, but it's not worth it. Grumgully, you know, you could keep it in to buff, make your 4/4s into 5/5s, but I mean, picking this up late game isn't going to do you a whole lot of good. It's really only good in your opening hand, so I see it as more of like a win more card or a good setup card, but I would rather not have it in and rather have just better cards in. Prosperous Bandit is also, I mean, it reads really well on paper, right? If you have this in your opening hand, maybe you could get in for damage, but it's a 2/2 with First Strike. We don't have a ton of ways to buff it in this deck, and then the 1/1 is most of the time never going to get in, so the Offspring isn't great. This deck, I mean, on turn 3 or 2, we want to play our Commander and not Prosperous Bandit, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I'm taking it out. Rampaging Baloths, it's good, but like, what does this do for us, right? Where it doesn't do a whole lot to advance our game plan. It just gets a bunch of, again, tokens of the battlefield to defend ourselves, which I can understand, but at the same time, 6 mana to do this would rather be playing a big artifact or a big enchantment. Teapot Slinger also, it's just a blocker that can burn our opponents. It's not worth it. Starstorm, paying too much into it, like I said, to get rid of those big creatures. Bootlegger Stash, again, doesn't really advance our game plan, just lets us store mana for later, which I don't think this deck really needs. Gilded Lotus and Thran Dynamo, I know I said Thran Dynamo was really good. These are both solid cards, right? But we already have enough low to the ground ramp and card draw that I don't think we need to have these two anymore. We're going to be getting enough lands, enough mana to be able to do what we want to do. And then we took out these 2 lands, not bad at all. I mean, we're drawing some cards. These aren't bad to have, right? But I just figured I'd take these out and give us 36 lands. That's all we need. 2 less tap lands so we can, you know, keep the game plan rolling. That's really what I decided here. Now we saw what we've taken out. We're going to move on to the 15 cards I'm going to add in. And we are starting off with Death Leaper Terror Weapon. Creatures you control that have entered the battlefield this turn have double strike, which is really good. So we can flash this in too to be make it a little bit of a combat trick, right? Give a blocker. That could be definitely helpful. Or if we want to just power up our 4/4s that are coming in, just give it double strike. Definitely helpful there too. I think this is a unique card and a cheap add, a very good budget add to the deck. Goblin and Necromancer also less than $1. And we do have a lot of artifacts in here that are colorless, but most of our enchantments are colored. You know, most of our creatures, our commander that might be dying a lot, right? We want to make sure we have enough resources to be able to cast lots of things, and Goblin and Necromancer does that really well. Then we have Moira, Trash Tactician, a really solid card from the main set. Beginning of our first main phase, we're going to be adding a red or a green mana for each raccoon we control. We don't have a ton. I mean, there are a few in the deck, right? The deck came with a few raccoons already, but even if you just have Moira in your commander, you're getting 2 more mana every first main phase each turn that you have. So it's really solid, and then you just get benefited for playing the game, right? You gain life when you expend 4, and then you can have Impulse Draw when you expend 8, which can definitely be helpful. And then Samut is the last creature we're adding. First Strike, Vigilance, Haste. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to a player, if that creature enters the battlefield this turn, draw a card. So on top of our commander drawing us cards for those creatures dealing damage, we're also going to be doing that with Samut as well, and can be a good blocker with First Strike and Vigilance. Now for the big artifacts, we're adding 8 artifacts, right? We have Camille, the Inner Sun, which is perfect. It's going to make our spells not be able to be countered. At the beginning of our end step, we're discovering 5, so we're getting potentially more 4-drops or 5-drop enchantments and stuff. Or we're adding a really good cards to our hand, or we're playing some creatures on the battlefield, and it makes our spells not be able to be countered. So really just a slam dunk in this deck is Camille. Doors of Durn is also a sneaky add. You might think it doesn't synergize too well with the deck, but it does have whenever you attack Scry 2, then you may reveal the top card. If it's a creature, put it on the battlefield, tapped and attacking. And you don't have to scry into a creature, right? You can just scry into something really good. Scrying 2 every time you attack is definitely nice, and especially if you get this out early, it can be good. And if you know you're going to get in, you can draw into it with your commander or some moot. So you could argue to maybe not put this in, put something else that's a bit less budget, but I think Doors of Durn is really solid here. Horde Hauler, also a fantastic card. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token for each artifact they control. So you're pretty much going to be bringing this out. It already has trample as well, and whoever has been ramping artifacts a whole game, you play this out, attack them, and get some, 2 treasures, and that helps you cast a much bigger spell the next turn. Really solid card here. Midnight Crusader Shuttle, another vehicle. When it attacks, defending player faces a villainous choice. They either sacrifice a creature or give you control of a creature they control until end of turn, and that if you gain control of a creature this way, you tap it, and it's already attacking that player, which is kind of cool. So it's a way to get in lots of damage and get rid of a blocker as well, which is pretty nice. Nautiloid Ship, also a fantastic vehicle to add. When it enters the battlefield, you exile a graveyard, which, having graveyard hate, you need to have it in this day and age. You just do, and this is works with the game plan of the deck. And when it deals combat damage to a player, you may put a creature card exiled with Nautiloid Ship onto the battlefield under your control. I mean, you don't need to be doing that. We already want to be dealing damage, but having a flying vehicle is definitely helpful. And then the Skullspore Nexus is also nice. Pretty much, it costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest power. So typically this will be 4 mana, right? Because you already have a 4/4 or maybe a 5/5, right? So you're not going to be casting this for 2 typically, but it makes it so that if someone kills your commander, you get a 3/3. If someone kills any of your other creatures, you're getting some stuff, but mainly you can tap at the double creatures' powers. So your creatures that are getting in, you can use this to get in there as well. And then Wondrous Crucible, 7 mana, permanent you control of Ward 2. At the beginning of your end step, mill 2 cards. Then exile a non-land at random from your graveyard, copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So Wondrous Crucible is really good. It's going to give your enchantments Ward 2, which helps keep them alive, and your artifacts as well. And then it's going to help you get into more ones for free, right? You're milling 2 cards, and then you can exile a non-land at random and then get a copy of it. So it's pretty nice. 3 enchantments we're adding. Guardian Project is just a great card to add to draw some more. And then Rite of the Raging Storm is really solid, right? It's gonna give our opponents creatures, but it's gonna make them attack our opponents, and we get it as well. And itself on our board is also another 4/4 that's going to be coming in. So very aggressive, and I think a fun clock to the game, right? It's going to be hard for our opponents to keep blocking these 5/1 tramplers with haste. And then Zendikar Resurgent, a really great card as well. Whenever you tap a land for mana, you're adding an extra mana. And then it has the upside of, whenever we cast a creature spell, we're drawing a card, right? Our commander might be dying a lot, so if we're casting creature spells, our commander definitely is helpful way to get it back easily. And any other creatures that we have, are going to have like 15 in the deck, so it can definitely be solid there. Well, that's going to do it for this review and upgrade. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure, if you want to win a copy of the Animated Army Precon yourself, you go ahead and leave a comment in the description below. What Bloomburrow commander are you most excited to build around? I love taking a look at the comments and responding myself. And 2 weeks after this video goes live, we're going to be revealing the winner on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/chaoticcommandermtg. Going to be giving away the Animated Army Precon to anyone in the US, so make sure to leave a comment, like and subscribe if you liked the video, and don't forget to check out the other reviews and upgrades so you can figure out chances to win those Precons as well. And let me know what you'd add, what you'd take out. I don't know, I like hearing everyone's opinions, so just come at me with what you got, and I'll see you on the next video. Y'all take care and have a good one. Bye.